All right, here we go. Welcome. Good morning again. So, my first question to everybody is, who knows their worth? And when I say their worth, I realize I work with a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, producers, and it's a question that comes up all the time. So just by a show of hands, when you are navigating in this business, trying to figure out what you want to do, how much to charge, how many of you are confident in knowing like this is my worth? Show of hands. Okay, we got one. Okay, two, maybe. Okay, it's not uncommon. That is definitely not uncommon. Okay, so we're working on understanding what our worth is as artists, as producers, managers, all that good stuff, right? Okay. So next, the other question I got: how many of you consider yourselves creative entrepreneurs? Okay, about half the room. Okay. Why are we saying not sure, maybe?
I had to think about the word entrepreneur for a second. I was like, okay, so that's like independent business owner.
Okay. Okay. So everybody in here should be considering themselves a creative entrepreneur. At the core of what this business is, it is about you being a creative entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is probably even more important than the creative part, because as we are in the music business, it is more about the business than it is about the music. The creative part, the studio, that is all well and fine. But without us understanding the business, understanding our worth, understanding that we are a part of a creative community that is making art and having to put a price tag to it. And it's not a price tag that is published on the internet. It's not a price tag that is publicly listed. It is a price tag that essentially I have to make up, which means I also have to know what my worth is, right? And how do I come up with that? Where are my people to help me figure out what that even looks like, right? And everybody's worth is going to be different, right? And as we gauge what we're doing and how we're doing it, you may know internally, and this just goes back to just pure motivation, right? I know my worth as a person. I know my worth and what I feel like my art actually should be going for in the marketplace. But as I build, that's going to come as well, right? It's going to get more expensive to work with me as I work with other people. But the core of what this is, we should know our worth at the beginning and know what my goal, what my aim is. Like where I'm trying to go is I'm trying to make sure my beats go for 50 grand, for 50 grand a track. That's my goal, even if I'm not starting there. But knowing your worth at the beginning is going to be imperative to us getting there, right? So, as the great poet laureate said, 2 Chainz, they asked me who I am and what I do it for. And I say, I am here because I am here to change the world by making sure that I bring diverse representation to creative spaces and also empower entrepreneurs to know their worth and take nothing less. I want you to know your worth. I want you to understand the creative spaces that you all are stepping into to make sure as we're moving forward, when I say diverse representation, as many of us, if you look at the producers that you love, things of that nature, all of them likely look like us. Most of the creative spaces, they look like us. These are Black and brown people of color. But when you look behind the scenes and you look at their teams and you look at who is representing them, oftentimes it is not people that look like us. I want to make sure that the teams are representative of the people that are on the forefront. I am not a forefront person. This right here ain't what I do. I don't really like to talk. I'm pretty shy in the real grand scheme of things. I'm an introvert. But when I come and I'm working with you all in this creative space, I love the creativity that you bring, and I see that there is a need, and I want to be able to fulfill that need because God didn't give me the gift of producing. I can't act, I can't sing, I can't do none of that. But I knew I wanted to be in this space. I wanted to work with you all. And so my gift to you all, as we talk about diverse representation, is to be that member of your team and to also be able to say, hey, y'all, this is your art. How do we protect it? And how do we make sure that you're getting as much money as possible for what you're bringing to the table, okay? So as we go into today's presentation, of course, we're talking about building your team and what does that look like? And essentially for me as an entertainment attorney, I want to kind of break down and demystify what the broader term entertainment attorney does, and actually talk about like what I actually do and bring to the table and things of that nature. That sound good? All right. So let's go. So first slide, this is about the team. So I've broken it out. Dom did an excellent job kind of giving you all a overview of what that team looks like. But I like visuals. I realize working with creatives, y'all like visuals too. So here we go. So of course we have the artist. I put here as the artist that you are an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur because even if you sign with a label one day, there's still an entrepreneurship component to that, because what they're going to do is pair you with an A&R person that's going to help you stay on budget, but it's going to be up to you and your team to create that deliverable. That deliverable becomes that piece of work, that it becomes that album. They're going to make sure you have all your paperwork together, your clearances, the producers you work with, all of those things. Yes, the label is there, but they're going to give you a liaison, which is typically in this day and age, that A&R person, but everything else is going to be up to you and your team to then deliver to the label, who then will clear everything, okay? So that's why your team is so important, because whether you stand independent or whether you go into a label, there's still a level of responsibility that you have as an artist, as the leader of the team, and as the entrepreneur. Every artist, entrepreneur that I know, they have to start a business. They have to have some form of LLC. Even if you're lending out your services to a label, let's say as a producer, or you're lending out your services as an artist, guess what? They need to know who to pay. They want to pay your company. They're paying your company because from a tax perspective, you want them to pay your company, and then you can divvy out all the other people you need to pay on your team. But also it helps create a structure. So no matter whether you are a signed artist or an independent artist, you are still considered a creative entrepreneur in this space, okay? And of course, then we break down, we get to your manager. And with the manager, you have a personal manager, but you also have your CPA, and you also have a road manager. So you have kind of like a combination of 3 different types of managers based on the phase in which you are in your career. The first manager you're going to encounter is somebody like Diamond, which is going to be your personal manager, right? They're the people that are going to shop your deals. I get asked all the time, do you shop deals? I don't shop deals. That's not my skill set. That's not the gift God gave me. Managers, booking agents, in some sense, but typically your manager is going to be the person that you're relying on to do that activity. So they're helping you do that. Some of them do artist development, things of that nature, but that's the person you're leaning on first, is your personal manager. Typically, they're oftentimes the first person on your team, even before me. Once you grow as an artist, you get an accountant or CPA or somebody, because you need somebody not necessarily to sign the checks. You don't want them signing your checks. You sign your own checks. But you do want somebody, if money is not your strong suit, to help you manage the money that is coming in, make sure people are getting paid, things of that nature. That's what a business manager is going to do. They're going to make sure, as a creative entrepreneur, you can one day go buy a house because they've gotten your tax stuff all together, right? They know how much money you really are bringing in. So that's what that business manager is going to do. But you're always going to sign your own checks, even if the manager is printing up the checks and putting them on your desk, okay? And then finally, you have the road manager, and this person works in tandem with your personal manager, and primarily their goal is to help you on the road. When you go on tours, radio tours, things like that, oftentimes as you become a bigger artist, your personal manager is handling so many day-to-day activities that your tour manager is specifically focused on just what is going on tour, managing all the things that have to do with tour. So from a big tour to a small tour, they're handling it all. So that's when you want to bring in the tour manager. So this person doesn't necessarily sit on your payroll all the time. They are kind of like a contractor person that you bring in only when you're going on tour, and they help manage things like that. Now, your tour manager and your regular manager or personal manager can be one and the same at times, depending on how big you are as an artist, but just giving you a broader scope of like, okay, what does this look like? You will also have at some point a tour manager to help navigate things that you do on the road, okay? So now you have your booking agent. This is the person who gets y'all gigs. So the booking agent is going to assist in doing placement for gigs. They help set up tour dates. They do things like that. Your manager and your booking agent, they work in tandem. It is not the manager's job, even by law, it is not the manager's job to get you a gig. It is a booking agent's job. They are the ones that's helping try to get you to open for your favorite artists, or to connect you to artists that are touring and they need opening acts. That is the job of a booking agent. At some point, you will get the services of a booking agent to help you procure, that's the technical term, help to procure employment, because getting gigs is procuring of employment. Now, yes, your manager might do like the spot shows and, if you're doing a club appearance or things like that, But on the bigger picture, the booking agent is going to be the one that tapped in to know who's touring, what's going on, who the festivals, things like that. That's where the booking agent comes in. They're going to know what festivals are going on and how to get you into those festivals. With a good manager who may know some booking agents, they can also work in tandem to help procure that employment at a festival or a little small concert venues and stuff like that. They're going to also have access to the venue. So that's what the purpose of your booking agent is going to be, okay? And then you have your radio promoter, playlist promoter. In this day and age, everybody's trying to get on a playlist, right? We know the big playlists like Rap Caviar and those premier playlists that you want to get on because let's say the top 10 songs are like the top 10 songs in the country, but that's also how people like myself discover new artists that I've never heard of, right? So you're looking at that radio promoter to help with playlist placement, to help get your song spun on the radio, whether it's at college radio stations, some of the small local stations. That's generally what their job is. And remember, you want people that are experts in their niche. You don't want somebody so broad it's like, I know a little bit of this and I know a little bit of that. No, you want somebody who knows exactly what they're doing in their niche, because then guess what? They can focus solely on that. That is their only responsibility. And if that's their only responsibility, guess what? They can't drop the ball because that's the only thing you're supposed to be doing, right? They can't say, well, I did all this other great stuff, but they dropped the ball over here. Well, no, all you're supposed to be doing is give me radio placements. What are radio placements at, right? So that's the purpose of the radio placement person. And then you have your marketing team. This is probably the biggest gap in artist development or in the indie artist space, is that nobody thought about putting money away for the marketing. Like as if the album is supposed to sell itself. I mean, at some point, unless you Tide or Procter & Gamble, where the product's been on the shelf for 11 years, guess what? Just like everything, just like any other product, do not make this rocket science and don't think too hard about it, right? You are trying to sell a product. Every product has to be marketed. So who is your marketing department? This can be a third party, right? You can hire a third party agency, but you should have money in your recording budget to market your product. If all you're going to do is record it, go to the studio, make the album, take some photos, go, spend some money on getting the music video done for, YouTube, and then release it on DistroKid, I mean, you still fail. Like 99% of the time, it's not going anywhere. And you just spent a whole lot of money for nothing. So you have to think about creating a marketing budget for your music to say, who is my target audience? Where are they? What's the music? Where am I trying to get my music heard at? Because without that marketing budget, some of your biggest indie artists have marketing budgets, like Dolph, RIP. But Dolph worked with a third-party marketing company to get, is it PMRP or whatever his paper money route, his label to where it was, because he worked with a marketing company. So you must have some money in the budget for marketing. Without money in the budget for marketing, I mean, you just doing a hobby for your friends to like go look on YouTube, okay? All right. And then finally, it's the attorney, and we'll get into that in a second. So overview. So you hear all the time people say, okay, eventually you need to get an entertainment attorney. Well, what exactly does that mean? The word entertainment attorney is a very broad term. It can include sports. It can include intellectual property, which is trademark and copyright. It can include music. It can include television and film. So within that broader umbrella, there's breakdowns. So you have you have attorneys who just practice music. You have attorneys who just practice television and film. They just practice sports. You want to get specific for your particular area. Now, some of these attorneys practice in multiple areas, or we can call them genres or whatever you want to call them. They may practice in these multiple situations, but you want to know specifically that the attorney you're hiring has done work in music, because music is a beast within itself, okay? Like generally, at some point, most attorneys will break up and decide like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this area. And if they're just focusing on music, guess what? They're not going to be really able to do your television and film deal, and kind of vice versa once they decide like what area they want to work in. But in general, these are the things that they're going to represent. So they're representing commercial endeavors, um, record company, studios, things like that. Those are all the things that they're going to do as your entertainment attorney. One of the things you want to be aware of is conflicts of interest when the attorney is playing multiple roles. I get asked all the time, but was just asked like, hey, do you do management of artists? Do you do help in other areas? No. My job is to be your lawyer. My job is to make sure that you are owning your rights and that you are protected in all capacities. When I start playing and wearing multiple hats and I start saying, okay, I'm going to help shop your deal at, Sony. Now, when I get in the midst of the Sony deal, now that I'm no longer the manager because I've gotten the deal to Sony and now I'm acting as your attorney, am I really trying to close the deal because I want to make sure I'm preserving this relationship with Sony, or am I closing the deal in your interest? Is the money most beneficial to you, or am I trying to play both sides of the fence because I want to make sure I can bring another artist to them? So I'm not really cutting the fool with them when they give me some BS contract, because my interest can be both ways. So my goal, what I do, I'm not some attorneys, I will say they do represent in multiple capacities. I don't, but it is because I want you to always know, as the lawyer, that I have no other horse in this race but you. My only interest, my only goal is to make sure you are satisfied in the deal once it's all done. And once that's done, that's it for me, right? So, like I said, there are multiple attorneys that do multiple things. I'm just not one of them. So if you are hiring a entertainment attorney that's doing music, you want to make sure and just ask the question, right? What do they do? What services do they provide? And if you want a attorney, because some do, they want an attorney that is going to be able to do, multiple things. If that's what you want, just be aware that the conflict could exist, right? And be okay with it. Now, these are all the things that a music attorney is going to do. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but essentially, as you can see, it's negotiating a bunch of deals, it's branding, it's trademarking, it's copyright protection, it's royalties, things like that. These are all of the kind of activities an entertainment attorney, specifically in music, is going to do to help their particular artist. One thing, and the distinction I want to make for you all, is there are litigation attorneys and there are transactional attorneys. I am a music transactional entertainment attorney, meaning I'm going to make sure all of your paperwork is together. I believe in preventative measures. I'm like your insurance policy. That's my job. That's my goal, is to make sure we never have to see the inside of a courtroom, because guess what? Our paperwork was in order. There's not an issue here, right? That's my goal. Now, you also have litigation attorneys. Litigation attorneys are the attorneys that oftentimes you end up hearing about on the news because Cardi B is suing somebody, Meg Thee Stallion is suing somebody. Those are litigation attorneys, and their job is to take that contract to court. There's a copyright infringement matter, they're going to court. Breach of contract, they are going to court. I am not the attorney that goes to court. I am the attorney that tries to make sure, from a safety perspective and preventative perspective, we've done the things that needed to be done to prevent us from going to court, because I'm trying to save you money on the front side so you're not spending a whole lot of money on the back side, okay? So just understand the difference as you're engaging with attorneys, because there may come a day where you need a litigation versus a transactional entertainment or music attorney. Done? And then, when do you need one? This is probably the biggest question I get all the time, is when should I hire you? Typically, it's when it's time to make a deal, when you know you have some things brewing that are important, when you know you're about to sign a big, and I don't want to say big contract, but a substantial agreement that will require you to have somebody look at it, right? That's when typically I'm going to be engaged. You and your manager will typically work through some of the gigging situations, booking things. But when the time comes and you have agreements on the table, that's when I'm here. I'm here for your trademark matters. I do trademark applications for clients. And when you need your trademarks, that means your stage name. That means, your production company. Things like that can be trademarked. So I do trademarks. We register your copyrights. We discuss making sure you're properly registered with your PROs and things like that, so that your monies from a royalty perspective is coming in. That is going to be my job up front. But that is when you typically will need me. It will not be all the time, but when the time comes, you will know. I always say, go with your gut instinct. You know when you need something versus it's like, I think we can do this without the necessity of having an attorney. So go with your gut instinct, and typically it will always lead you correctly. And then finally, let's just talk about these agreements. These are the agreements that I'm going to say when asked, like, what agreements you should be aware of, what agreements I should be familiar with. These are going to be your agreements. Your recording agreement, your producer agreement, exclusive versus non-exclusive. What does that mean? These are the key agreements, in my opinion, that every artist, manager, producer should be aware of, and not an expert, but vaguely familiar. Because guess what? In the studio, you're already low-key talking about some of these terms that are going to be incorporated in these agreements. So you need to be at least versed enough to have the basic conversation about publishing rights. Are we splitting them, and how are they going to be split? Without a contract, it is a 50-50 split because y'all didn't decide on anything. So the court says, well, I guess everybody own equally a share. When, let's say, as a producer, you felt like, you did 80% of the work, so you should earn 80% of the money. Well, if you didn't agree to that, typically, because we are working and I say this lightly, good faith, by agreement, because typically y'all don't have a piece of paper in the studio. Essentially, what you're saying is, okay, I agree that, we're going to split this 80-20, and then we will get our people to write it down, right? But at least we've had that conversation. If for nothing else, y'all, have the conversation and do not be afraid to have the conversation. If you are afraid to have the conversation, that's how when I get on the phone with Lil Boo Boo manager and they saying, he said so and so, but if there was no conversation, now we're in this 50-50, or now I'm having to argue about, like, my client did more work than yours. And so that's why we're asking for more of a percentage in the royalty share, right? So those are the things you want to kind of have the conversation about ahead of time so that there is not any, like, confusion, okay? So you're having those, I'll put non-exclusive versus exclusive up here. And that's primarily if you're doing beats, understanding what you're getting when you say, I got an exclusive beat versus non-exclusive. I will say now, I'm not a fan of buying beats on BeatStar, things of that nature. I know it's probably a shame, but I'm just not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it because there are too many loopholes. It's just too much. So with that being said, if you're going to do it, understand the difference, okay? Oh, featured artist agreements. Finally, this is when you get somebody to come on your track. Your featured artist agreement is going to be like, hey, I want you to feature on my track. What are you giving this artist? Did they write their own lyrics, or are you feeding them what they're going to say? If you're feeding them what they're going to say, guess what? They don't get no publishing because they didn't write nothing. All they doing is repeating verbatim what you told them to say, right? Versus them saying, okay, well, I did provide vocals, which is a contribution to the sound recording. So now they want a percentage of that. And what exactly does that look like? That is not 50% of the master recording, because their vocals aren't, honestly, in my opinion, may not be worth that, but they may be. But once again, having the conversation and negotiating that up front is going to save you and me a lot of trouble when it comes down to doing your contracts, okay? But yeah, y'all have my contact information. I put cards in the thing, and we about to start Q&A. Let's go.